What's up, bitches? I'm coming to you from vacation now, which is why you have horrible audio quality, horrible video quality, and I haven't shaved. Well, I don't do that when it's a normal week either sometimes. But I look like a mess. But I didn't want to let this GOP debate slide. I wanted to respond to it. I wanted to give you guys my take on it. So there's some interesting takeaways here. The first thing is that I think this debate kind of mirrored the first debate in many ways. I think a lot of the same people stood out. I think a lot of the same themes repeated themselves. But of course, there were a few differences. So, first of all, Donald Trump show. It was the Donald Trump show all day long. I kind of think he cleaned house. Now, what's funny is I was getting text messages from some of my friends, and people were saying, well, this is it. He's going to tank now. He's going to drop in the polls. He's going to basically become irrelevant at this point. And my gut reaction was, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I think he's doing a lot of what he did in the first debate. And in fact, I even think he had a better performance in this debate than he had in the first debate. I mean, he's Donald Trump, so of course he said many absurd, over-the-top, ridiculous things. But then there's those moments that I think are really important where he speaks about corruption again, and he continues to say everybody else on stage is a puppet. And then there was one point where he defended a progressive tax system. Where the fuck did that come from? And he said, I think hedge fund managers should be taxed more. When he says stuff like that, what I think a lot of people don't get is that that's stuff that the Republican base likes to hear too. There's this idea out there that the Republican base somehow is not in favor of Social Security, not in favor of Medicaid, not in favor of Medicare. They don't want to raise the minimum wage. They don't want to tax the rich more. That's not true. They want to do all of those things. Now, obviously, on other issues, there's a tremendous gap between what progressives want and what the Republican base wants. But on the things that Donald Trump is actually sounding somewhat progressive on, the base of the Republican Party is actually somewhat progressive on those things too. So I think he's fucking cleaning house, man. So let me give you my breakdown here. Number one, I have Donald Trump winning. Number two, out of fucking nowhere, man, Chris Christie. Now, I don't think anybody else has this opinion. I don't think the polls reflect this at all, and I'll get to the polls in a little bit. But I think he did a good job. I think, every time he spoke, he did basically the same kind of thing that I would have done if I was on the stage there, which is you kind of say, enough with the petty bullshit. Nobody cares about your careers. Nobody cares about your independent, experience doing X, Y, or Z. All they care about is, what are you going to do for the American people? And he kept stressing, now, I don't think Chris Christie would do dick for the American people. That's clear. I think he's a liar. I think he's a bullshitter, even though he masks himself as being a straight shooter. But the fake straight shooter aspect came across yesterday, and I think he did a fantastic job in the debate, so much so that I put him at number two. Now, I think that he didn't talk nearly as much or nearly enough, and you can, partially blame the moderators for that. And that kind of hurt him, I think. And it may be the case that he's already too far gone in the eyes of the Republican base, and they don't like him so much that they would never even consider voting for him. But purely on debate performance alone yesterday, I absolutely think he did well. I would give him number two. Number three, I'm going to go Marco Rubio. I think he kind of did what he did in the first debate, which is his standards were set pretty low ever since the water incident. And he managed to hold it together enough and to be coherent enough to make the base like him. Again, he probably said nothing that was actually true, but from the perspective of just your average Republican voter, I think they looked at him like, yeah, he's an option. He's up there. Then I go Carly Fiorina. Now, I put Carly Fiorina here at number 4 begrudgingly. I think people are overhyping her and saying, oh my God, she did a great job. It was so perfect. No, not. I mean, if you really look at what she said, how she was saying it, it was very contrived. But, I mean, I guess since, again, the bar is so low since it's a Republican debate, people are saying, oh, she won, and oh my God, didn't she have so much substance? Again, I don't even think it's true she had so much substance. She was a consistent warmonger with a lot of the stuff she said. And when she talked about Planned Parenthood, it was make shit up all day long city. I mean, oh, they're selling body parts and there's videos of fetuses alive and screaming and then they kill them. The fuck are you talking about? Totally made up. So she's fringy, but I give her spot number 4 because it seems overwhelming that other people say, well, she was number 1, and she held it together enough to get number 4 on my list. Then I go Ben Carson, classic Ben Carson, very kind of quiet, somewhat smooth with his nonsense. Everything he said was untrue, of course, but that's the case for almost all these guys. But he was calm enough and kept it together enough where people still like him. Then I'm going to go Rand Paul. Rand Paul had a much better performance this time around. He was much more himself than he was in the last debate. But, I mean, he needs a lot more than that to really have a shot at this thing. It might be too little too late. It might be too far gone for Rand Paul, but I give him credit for actually being himself yesterday and making some sense yesterday, which unfortunately, I guess it might even work against him. I mean, I was really critical of his first debate performance because it looked like he was trying to be somebody he wasn't. This time he was himself, and I think that should give him a bump in the polls. But you never know. I mean, so many people in the Republican base are crazy that they might just go, he said something smart about foreign policy. Fuck him. I ain't voting for him. Then we have, I'm going to go Ted Cruz here. I hate Ted Cruz with a burning passion. I think he's a smarmy, sleazy, cheesy politician. But there were some points where he did his rants that were totally made up, but he hit the points well enough where some Republican-based voters might like him, so I put him kind of in the middle of the pack here. Below Ted Cruz, I go Jeb Bush. Again, guys, you got to watch out here. I mean, to me, the people to really look out for, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush. I used to say Scott Walker. He's kind of off that list now. But Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush are the establishment fallback candidates. And that's who won in the 2012 primary for the GOPers, Mitt Romney, and that's who won in 2008, John McCain. The relatively moderate people on stage who knew how to play the establishment game the best, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, are those guys. So they might not be doing the best in terms of the debate, but they're going to hang in there. That's the best way to phrase this, I think. We'll see whether or not this is true at the end. Then, unfortunately, I got John Kasich under him. His first debate performance might have been a little bit of a fluke. He did a fantastic job in the first debate performance. He had a home court advantage, if you will. It was happening in his state where he's the governor. Everybody cheered for him like crazy. But he was reasonable. He actually argued for a more moderate Republican position. This time around, it seemed, I don't know, like he maybe was a little nervous. He was under the gun, and he was reaching. He was, a little uncomfortable. So it just, he didn't perform very well. Then the bottom two, I have Scott Walker because he's so fucking boring and so fucking irrelevant. And he's just got nothing there, man. There's no spark there or anything. And dead last, I have Mike Huckabee. Dude, your time passed. It's not 1953. I mean, every single thing that he argues for ferociously are things that are just dumb. I mean, he went long rants defending Kim Davis, long rants talking about how Iran, they're terrible, they're awful, they have a theocracy set up, and oh, isn't that terrible? And then, of course, the next time he speaks, he wants a Christian theocracy in America, contradicting himself left and right, arguing deep in that right-wing bubble on abortion and on every issue. I mean, these guys look like they don't even know that, as of today, over 60% of the American people are for gay marriage. And I get it. In a Republican primary, perhaps you can get away with being anti-gay now, more so. But you're getting to the point where even in the Republican primary, people are going to start rolling their eyes. Guys, young Republicans are not anti-gay anymore. And these are the people who are going to be voting and are going to be politically active. And a guy like Mike Huckabee, I mean, fuck, man. You're out there. Fuck gay people. Abortions are terrible. Planned Parenthood sucks. Fuck Iran. Let's fight everybody. You just stop. And it's not smooth anymore. In 2008, he was able to couch his bullshit and, butter over his bullshit with flowery rhetoric. Now he's just like a fucking curmudgeonly grandpa. So horrible, horrible, horrible performance for him. Now, in terms of the actual poll results, oh, goddamn, this is amazing, man. Donald Trump, this poll is the Drudge Poll. Donald Trump, 50%, 50.87% say he won. By the way, that's 343,000 votes. People say he won. Granted, this is the base of the base because it's on drudgereport.com, and I don't think it's a scientific poll. But for what it's worth here, 50% he got when there's 11 people on stage. That's unheard of, guys. That's ridiculous. Fiorina, 22.69%. Number 2 there. Rubio, 6.54%. So those first three, roughly speaking, I think the gut reaction of your average Republican voter is actually right or somewhat on here. Then they have Cruz at 6%, Paul at 4%. So again, Paul did better. Carson at 4%, Christie at 1.38%, Kasich at 1.28%, Bush at 1.24%, Walker at 0.78%, Huckabee at 0.61%. So actually, my sentiment this time around kind of lined up with your average Republican voter, which actually makes sense because I've told you guys from the last debate here, when I watch these debates, I try to analyze them through the lens of your average Republican voter. I mean, if I was analyzing them through my own lens, my own policy ideas, everybody gets an F. I mean, that's obvious. Everybody would fail miserably, and we would all laugh at them all day long and mock them and say they're not serious people, which I'll do in a little bit, of course. And by the way, the Newsmax poll, the poll from The Street, which is a website I just never heard of or haven't gone to, and NewJersey.com, all of those polls have Donald Trump winning by a fucking landslide. Some polls have him over 60%. There's 11 people on stage. 60% of people say he wins. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. I've never just crushing over-the-top debate victories. Now, again, it's a different question as to whether or not when people get in the voting booth, if they want to actually vote for the person who they say to pollsters, I'm most favorable towards this person, because it's a different thing. Well, okay, I like him versus I'm going to vote for him and I think he can govern. And in some polls, Donald Trump does much worse when you ask that question. Would you vote for him? Not, hey, are you favorable towards him or did he win the debate? So it's still more of an open question than it appears to be here. But Donald Trump, he's a fucking contender, man. It pains me to say it, but he's right there. Anybody who has totally dismissed him, I would say they're wrong. I mean, you got to evolve with the evidence. You got to change with the times. You know, you have to be objective here, and he certainly has a shot, whether or not we like it. Are we going to see nothing but continued Trump-crushing victories from here on out when it comes to debates? It's yet to be seen, but this was my debate breakdown for this time around.